Hey there, we're talking about the Enterprise Data Services platform and specifically looking at our protection pillar here. And today, Alex is going to show us exactly how we can set up a data protection plan in NetBackup 8.2.
Yeah, so first off, we're just going to take a look at an environment that NetBackup is taking a look at. So this particular VMware environment has been discovered by NetBackup. We'll go here and we'll see that we have a number of different VMs that are currently not protected. Obviously, we're going to want some of them protected. So we'll go ahead and go to our protection plans. And we could use an existing protection plan and it would be super quick to protect, but let's start off by creating a protection plan. So we'll go ahead and add a new one, VM Protection 2. And then you can add any sort of descriptor that you want. We're gonna go ahead and use the exact same title as the descriptor, but obviously in your environment, you can add something that's more appropriate for the description. We'll go ahead and hit next. And then here's where it starts to get interesting. We're going to do some schedules. And so I'll go ahead and add a schedule for a daily backup. And you see here that here's the daily backup. It has a default retention of every 2 weeks. In fact, let's go ahead and set it to just 1 week for this particular backup. But what we are going to do is we're going to keep this backup for rapid restores. And we'll go ahead and tier one off for long-term retention, all from the same schedule. Just by clicking this box to duplicate, we'll go ahead and keep this one for 2 months. And we'll go ahead and hit save. As you'll see in a second, we're going to use different storage for both of these.
Okay.
And it'll apply automatically, but we'll hit save.
And I did notice if we wanted to, we could add a second schedule here
Sure.
as well, right?
And so a common thing that might happen for compliance reasons or just department policy is you may want to take a monthly backup and keep that for a longer period of time. So we'll go ahead and create a second backup for this particular data plan. And we'll say weekly, but we're going to set the weekly to every 4 weeks, basically a monthly. We'll say we're going to run those on Tuesdays. And retention period is going to be years instead of weeks. So we'll go ahead and keep it for, let's say, 2 years. We'll hit save. And so now you'll see that both of these schedules will apply to this exact same data protection plan in terms of frequency of when they run and in terms of retention, in terms of how long we keep the image.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's go on to the storage. And you see here that we have backup storage and we have long-term retention storage. And so the backup storage is going to apply to that first schedule that runs.
Right.
And then when we check that box for long-term retention, that's what we'll use that long-term retention storage. So we'll go ahead and edit this to actually select what we're going to use for storage. And so in this case, we're going to use our NetBackup media server, MSDP pool over here.
Okay.
And then for long-term retention, we happen to have Cloud Target available here. And it's worth noting that this Cloud Target, we're capable of targeting some sort of cold storage like Glacier, some sort of Azure Archive, things like that directly. And we're able to send this data deduplicated, so there's no need to send all of the blocks that you're writing over at all times.
That's very cool.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and hit next, and we're going to see some options here as they come up. And so right away, there's a handful of options in terms that you can see even without clicking on the advanced. Importantly, one of the things we're worried about is making sure that the backups don't damage the production environment. And obviously, when we're running snapshots, as this does in terms of agentless backups, we want to make sure that we're not filling up the data store that could cause it to crash if it goes over the high water mark, things like that. And so we do that by making sure that, as an example, by default, that we're removing any NetBackup snapshots that exist before we continue the backup. This way, we're not piling on from previous snapshots that haven't been cleaned up. Now, you can disable that if you want.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it, but you have some flexibility in how
Right.
you want to manage your environment. And then if we click on the advanced, you're going to see some additional options that we have here. By default, we have checked making sure that it's quiesced. Very important for the integrity of the image to make sure it's a quiesced snapshot. Very importantly also, you'll notice that we have some options here for Microsoft applications. And so as an example, we can take agentless backups of Exchange and still be able to recover up to even individual emails from an Exchange backup that we've taken from a snapshot.
So just by checking that box, it'll automatically handle.
It'll grab the metadata that it needs to be able to do that. That's right.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then beneath that, what you're going to see here is different transport methodologies. And so we can do SAN, hot add, LAN in terms of both regular old network and networks with security built in. What I always recommend at a minimum, right, if you have a SAN, some people may only have SAN checked. I would recommend that generally speaking, you're going to have a network connection as well. What I've seen in the past is sometimes there's some rezoning that could happen to the SAN, and maybe not everybody talks to each other. And so you want to have a backup for your backup to make sure that it actually runs overnight, and then you can go in the next day and fix whatever SAN issues you see. So I like having both SAN and LAN checked.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it'll automatically use the best transport type that's available.
That's right. So it's going to prefer SAN in this instance because, of course, SAN is going to be a dedicated connection between the data store and the NetBackup environment.
Right.
And then we'll use the network if we have to, but in this scenario, it would use SAN first.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's go to next, and we're just going to get a review of our data protection plan, and you can see all of the different things we selected, including the Microsoft Exchange protection, as well as making sure that it's quiesced and that we're using both SAN and network. And you can also see the initial storage and the long-term retention. We'll go ahead and finish. And now when we go to data protection plans, you're going to see that we have VM Protection 2 that we just created. And so now if we go back to VMware, here's where I want you to start counting clicks.
Okay.
All right, so we have a VM. It's discovered automatically.
All right.
It's not protected.
Sure.
1 click. We're going to add protection.
2 clicks.
All right, we're going to select the one we just picked.
That's 3.
All right, and we're going to hit protect. It's now protected.
That's it.
How many clicks did that take?
That was 3 clicks.
I think that was 4 total.
Well, yeah, 4 total, but you know.
To confirm. But here, if we're going back into the VMware display, you're going to see VMware Protection 2 applied, and we're taken care of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I know we talked through this entire process, but it seems like to actually create a protection plan is actually really fast as well.
Yeah, once you get used to it, it's super quick to create them, and of course, it's super quick to apply them.
Well, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for showing me this.
Yeah, great.